Hey everyone, and welcome to Streams After Midnight TV edition. I am Peter, that is Tim. We are working our way through Tales from the Crypt. This is going to be Season 5, Episode 12. It's called Halfway Horrible. So full spoilers for the episode as always. And this one stars Clancy Brown, the one notable face that kind of stuck out to me. And he plays a businessman at a chemical company who's got this great big new fancy product, this new preservative that will preserve food, clothes, wood, everything. Everything you can imagine. It'll preserve it forever. Your wood will never rot, your clothes will never fade, your food will stay good forever. Your apple from 2 years ago, oh, that'll still be fresh and tasty, in 2 years' time, because this preservative's, preserving it, I guess. But one of he's like partner. His partner who founded the company with him has turned up dead, and he's got tribal markings on top of him, and a note that says "Haven't forgiven, haven't forgotten." So that is the premise, and of course, a detective's looking into who the killing is. There's some flashbacks to where they got this magical ingredient for the thing in the rainforest of Brazil, and what they might have got up to down there with him and his three friends, one of whom is the co-founder of the company, and then two other guys who were with them at the time. And that's the gist of the episode. So, Tim, did this break the streak? Was this a great episode of Tales from the Crypt?
Yeah, I was actually really surprised. I couldn't believe that. No, of course I'm kidding. This was awful.
You've swerved me like that a couple of times recently. Where you've came in and been like, "Oh, no, this was great." This was fun. No, it sucked. It sucked so much, Tim. Why did it suck? Tell us why it sucked, Tim.
Well, first of all, so we usually record these episodes Sunday morning, which means I watch these like late Saturday night. Like a lot of times on the weekend, I'll usually spend them hanging out with my fiance, and then when I get home, I'll kind of watch this and Ash vs. Evil Dead before I go to bed, and I like it. It kind of reminds me of like when I was a kid, and I would stay up late to watch like horror movies and kind of like try to keep the TV volume low so like my parents don't know what I'm doing or something. And
yeah, but now there's no one to wake up though, Tim. You're just keeping it low for no reason.
Yeah, but the point I'm getting at though is I was home. I came home pretty late yesterday. It was like I think maybe like 1:30 by the time I watched this, and I was already really tired. And it was also daylight savings time, so I knew I was gonna be losing an hour of sleep. But I like watched this in like such a daze. It was so hard to stay awake because it was so dumb and boring. And I love Clancy Brown. He's amazing. And so I got excited when I saw him, and I got excited when it opens up with like a weird, like crypt keeper making salon jokes, hairdresser jokes.
Yeah, but both the start and the end have the crypt keeper in a salon talking about, oh, what treatment would you like, and making jokes. And I'm like, this has nothing. Like, this is like so far removed from what the episode is. Like, there is nothing to relate the salon aspect of the crypt keeper to the preservative voodoo plot of the episode. Oh,
So like at first I was excited. I was like, oh, like killer salon. Okay, maybe that could be cool. And then obviously that's not what it was about. But then I think he also made some jokes about like zombies, like you said, to zombie or not to zombie or something. I was like, okay, a zombie episode. Well, that can still be cool. But once like Tales from the Crypt, it's not the most sensitive show. And once they kind of start talking about like other cultures and voodoo and stuff, it's like,
oh yeah, anything with a tribe or voodoo on this show usually ends up being absolute garbage, and this is no different. And because the opening scene is kind of fine. Like, so he's there to identify his co-founder's body, and the detective's asking him questions, and there's the note, there's the tribal markings, and I groaned a little bit at the tribal markings. I was a little bit worried about that, but that could be anything at this point.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to a flashback 6 years earlier, Brazil, and they're in like the jungle, and they're with a tribe, and they're doing markings and like drinking this stuff, and I'm like, oh my god, no! What are we doing? Stop it, please! I don't want this in my life.
Yeah. And then. Yeah, I mean, and then that stuff aside, like, yeah, it's just not, like, interesting. Like, again, I was, like, so, like, out of it. I was, like, trying so hard to stay awake, and I'm just, like, please, like, have something happen to hold my attention. And I don't
Yeah,
know, like I guess once they kind of start getting to the zombie stuff by the end, like I was like, well, I don't know, at least it kind of looks cool, but I mean, plot wise, it still wasn't really interesting or I don't know, do much.
no, because so the gist of it once it gets going is that the other guy who was there in the jungle died. The fourth one actually died in the jungle because Clancy Brown actually traded him for the secret. He's like,
Yeah.
"Here's your sacrifice, tribal people, so you can give me your magic mineral," and that's kind of what the revenge element's supposed to be about. Although, of course, the big twist is that it's not actually like a ghost or a voodoo zombie that's coming back and killing his friends. It's that the guilt and the voodoo is working on him, and he's like blacking out and killing people himself. That's the twist, and so he gets someone who don't even see before the scene where he comes over and he's like, can you fix this? Fix this. What's going on with this voodoo doll? Fix it. I'll make you rich. And he basically, because people keep telling him, it's only the half of you that's corrupt. You have to get rid of that half. So he basically makes himself Two-Face by killing half of his body. And he's like, so the last scene's like him preserving it with his preservative.
Serum thing, yeah.
Yeah, and the episode doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Not really. I was like, I don't know. I kind of wanted to like watch it again in the light of day when I was like more awake and stuff to see like, all right, did I kind of like miss something? But it's not like a very like straightforward, sensical episode.
You've got scenes with him where he's with his like second in command at the company, where he's like he's like, oh, you should deal with this. You should find that fourth guy Kevin and deal with him because he could be a loose end. And what does that even mean? Is he saying you should go and kill him? And we have a scene where he's doing an interview about the preservative, like telling the press about it. He's like, oh, it's going to be amazing. It's going to preserve everything. It's going to change the world, and no consequences, no negative effects. And that scene's fine on its own because he's got charisma and it works, but ultimately it doesn't really add a whole lot to the episode as a whole. Like, it doesn't really do much for the rest of it.
Well, I mean, I think that's the most interesting thing is this preservative stuff, because then you can do a whole thing where, like, yeah, it can be about killing people, but then, injecting them with this preservative that keeps them alive, and then, they're, trying to kill you or something like that. I don't know, like, I think that would be much more interesting than bringing all this, like, voodoo stuff into it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I already groaned when we went to the flashback. I groaned again when he found the voodoo doll in his apartment. And I'm like, oh, really? We're doing this? Come on. And then it's just like him going crazy and like talking till his dead friend shows up, but he's not really there, and he's kind of pointing out, so it's really you that's doing this. You're the one who's going nuts. And I just didn't care. It's such a mediocre episode.
Yeah, and again, it really like makes me upset when you have a bad episode with an amazing guest star. Like, Clancy Brown is so good. He plays such like a good, like, ominous kind of like imposing figure, and it's just completely wasted in this one.
I hate to say it, but it actually makes last week's episode, Oils Well That Ends Well, look better. It actually does.
True, yeah. I mean, if gun to my head, if I had to choose one to watch again, it probably would have been that one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's convoluted as shit, but it had more plot than this one did. Oh, dear. That said, they equally make no sense. That's also
true.
Yeah.
Do we have like one more for the season?
Yeah, we got episode 13 as the finale next week. So
if we can pull it out of its ass and go home with a win.
Redemption. The rating on IMDb does not fill me with confidence, however. But redemption.
Oh, no.
I'll just say this.
Is that the name of the title or?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. I was just going to say redemption as for the season, which has been pretty weak.
Yeah.
It's called Till Death Do We Part. And the main character's a gigolo.
Oh, all right.
That's different.
We shall see.
We shall see. But this week was not the winner we were hoping for. No. Certainly not. Oh no. Yeah, and I thought the detective was really bad. It's because the detective was doing this thing where it's like, "Oh, I'm actually suspicious of you, so I'm asking all these questions about who might want to
Yeah.
hurt you because I'm suspicious of you." But his acting was really like, surface level and like very obvious that he was suspecting him the
Hmm.
entire time, and
Yeah.
so those scenes weren't interesting either. Like, so I don't know.
Now, have you watched the X Files? Were you an X Files fan?
Nah, I've only seen the first season, and I've seen season
Okay.
10, bizarrely. But
Because Tales from the Crypt kind of reminds me of the X Files, where it's like when I think about it in my head, it's like, oh yeah, I love this show. Like, oh man, there's so many great episodes, but you're only really thinking of like, the 10, 15, 20 or whatever, like amazing standout episodes. But then when
mm,
you go back and like try to rewatch it, you realize like, oh, there's like hundreds of these episodes, and a lot of them are kind of like forgettable, like or not that great. Like,
yeah.
yeah, the ones that stand out are like, oh, this is awesome, I love this. But yeah, there's so much that you forget is like, ooh, this is not the best.
Yeah, like I say, when we finish the whole show, we'll do a top 10 or top
Mhm.
25 maybe of episodes and pick our favourites. But oh dear, this was this has been a rough season, and this episode did not help that case whatsoever. But hey ho, there we go. There's another one, another murky episode of Tales from the Crypt. So by all means, let us know what you think of this one in the comments. Like, subscribe, all the usual stuff. Get us on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the channel, head over to patreon.com/mailedfuzztv. There's a link in the description for that. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching. Keep watching TV, guys, and we'll see you next time.